The great council chamber was filled with fear. Beings from 12 different worlds sat in their special seats, each one more worried than the last. The air itself seemed to shake with their nervous energy. Some had blue skin that glowed softly in the dim light. Others looked like walking crystals that made tiny ringing sounds when they moved. A few had tentacles instead of arms, and their eyes were as big as dinner plates. Ambassador Kethver stood at the center of the room. His body was made of what looked like living crystal, and right now it was flickering between different colors. This was bad news for everyone watching. When a Zephyrian's crystal body changed colors quickly, it meant they were very scared. "Friends," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the huge room, "I bring terrible news from the outer worlds. The Void Hunters have struck again." A wave of frightened whispers swept through the chamber. The Void Hunters were the worst nightmare of every civilized world in the galaxy. They came from the dark spaces between stars, and wherever they went, they left nothing but dead planets behind them. 3 more star systems are gone, Kethver continued, his crystal form now glowing a deep red color. Terralux Nebulan Prime, and all the colonies in the Kepler belt. Our long-range sensors show nothing but empty space where millions of beings once lived. A tall alien with green skin and 4 arms raised one hand to speak. This was General Thoxahar from the Kepler Defense Force. His people had been fighting the Void Hunters longer than anyone else. "How many ships did they lose?" he asked, though his voice already sounded like he knew the answer. "None," Kethver replied. "Like always, they took everything and lost nothing. Our weapons barely scratched their ships. Their shields seemed to eat our energy blasts." The room fell silent. This was the same story they had heard dozens of times before. The Void Hunters would appear without warning, attack with ships that looked like they were made from dead metal and twisted flesh, and then vanish after consuming everything alive on the planets they attacked. For 200 years they had been spreading across the galaxy like a disease. They started far away in the outer rim, eating small colonies and mining worlds. But now they were getting closer to the big civilized worlds, the ones with billions of people. Elder Zerathel slowly rose from her meditation pod. She was ancient even by the standards of her people, the Meridians. Her 6 arms moved in slow, graceful patterns as she spoke. Her voice was soft, but somehow everyone in the room could hear her perfectly. "Perhaps," she said, each word carefully chosen, "it is time to speak of the old stories." The chamber became completely quiet. Even the youngest delegates knew about the Meridian legends. The Meridians were the oldest race in the galaxy, and they kept the history of all the civilized worlds. Their stories went back thousands of years, to the time when the first spacefaring races had met each other. "You speak of the Terran legends," said Captain Mordak, a warrior from the Altair system. His people were known for being practical, not believing in old stories. "Those are just myths. Stories told to make children feel brave." Elder Zarathel turned her ancient eyes toward him. "Are they? The chronicles speak of a race called humans. They were said to live in a system called Sol, far from the major trade routes. The old records described them as unusual among the civilized races." "Unusual how?" asked Ambassador Kethver. "They were said to be the only race that could fight, without hope of winning. When all other species would surrender or flee, humans would keep fighting. The records say they had a saying, 'Never give up, never surrender.'" General Thoxahar made a sound that might have been laughter if his people could laugh. "And where are these mythical humans now? If they were real, why haven't we seen them?" "The last records place them in the Sol system, in what your people call the Perseus Arm," Elder Zarathel replied. "But that was over 2,000 years ago. The chronicles say they fought something called the Star Devourers and won, but at a great cost. After that, they vanished from galactic history." "Star Devourers," whispered Dr. Yelanara, the Council's chief scientist. "That sounds like another name for the Void Hunters." The room erupted in excited conversation. If the humans had fought the Void Hunters before and won, maybe they could help now. But there was one big problem. Even if these humans were real, Captain Mordak said, They disappeared 2,000 years ago. They're probably extinct by now. Or maybe, said a new voice from the back of the room, they're just very good at hiding. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. It was Captain Kyle Morrison, commander of the exploration ship Horizon's Edge. He was supposed to be on a mapping mission in the outer systems. But here he was at the emergency council meeting. Captain Morrison, Ambassador Kethver said, his crystal form pulsing with curiosity. What brings you here? And what do you know about humans? Morrison stepped forward, his face serious. 3 days ago, my ship was conducting a routine survey of the Perseus Arm. We were following some old star charts, looking for new mineral deposits. He paused, looking around the room at all the alien faces staring at him. We found something. Deep space monitoring stations, hidden in asteroid fields. They were watching us with technology I've never seen before. Watching you? Elder Zarathul asked, her ancient voice filled with interest. Our sensors detected energy signatures that don't match anything in our databases. Whoever built those stations has been there for a long time, and they've been watching the galaxy very carefully. Morrison pulled out a small device and activated it. A holographic star map appeared in the air above him. The stations were positioned perfectly to monitor all the major shipping lanes and communication channels. Someone has been keeping track of everything that happens in civilized space. Did you try to make contact? Asked Dr. Yelanara. We tried. No response to any of our standard communication protocols. But here's the interesting part. Morrison manipulated the hologram, zooming in on a particular star system. The stations are arranged in a defensive pattern around a single system. A system with a yellow star and several planets. Elder Zarethal's 6 arms began to move in complex patterns. This was how her people showed great excitement, a yellow star. The chronicles described the human sun as yellow, unlike the red or blue stars that most civilized races call home. But that's not all, Morrison continued. While we were studying the monitoring stations, our long-range sensors detected something else, ships, lots of them. They were too far away to get detailed scans, but they were definitely artificial. How many ships? General Foxahar asked. Morrison took a deep breath. At least 1,000, maybe more. They were arranged in formations that looked like they were ready for war. The room was completely silent now. Everyone was thinking the same thing. If humans were real, and if they had been hiding for 2,000 years, and if they had built a fleet of warships, then maybe there was hope after all. We need to make contact, Ambassador Kethver said. If these humans are real, if they've fought the Void Hunters before, they might be our only chance. But how do we approach them? Asked Captain Morduck. If they've been hiding for 2,000 years, they might not want to be found. Elder Zarathul rose from her meditation pod. Again, the old chronicles speak of human honor. If the legends are true, they would not stand by and watch civilized worlds die. But they would also be very careful about who they trust. So what do we do? Morrison asked. We go to them, Zarathul said simply. We tell them the truth. That the galaxy is dying and we need their help. And if they refuse? General Foxahar asked. The ancient meridian was quiet for a long moment. Then we face extinction with dignity. But something tells me that if humans are real, they won't let that happen. As the council meeting ended, Captain Morrison couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover something that would change everything. The myths might be about to become reality, and reality might be more dangerous than anyone imagined. The meeting was set to happen in neutral space, far from any world or station. The Galactic Council chose their biggest diplomatic ship, the Harmony's Call, for this historic first contact. The ship was beautiful, with white walls that seemed to glow softly in meeting rooms designed to make any species feel comfortable. Ambassador Kethver paced nervously in the main conference room. His crystal body kept changing colors as he worried about what was going to happen. Around him, the best minds of the galaxy waited. There were translators who could speak 100 different languages, scientists who had studied every known form of life, and diplomats who had solved conflicts between species that had been fighting for centuries. What if they don't come? asked Dr. Yelanara, checking her instruments for the 100th time. "What if this is all a mistake?" "They'll come," said Elder Zarathul, though her 6 arms moved in patterns that showed she was nervous too. The monitoring stations, Captain Morrison found, prove that someone is out there. Someone who has been watching us for a very long time. Captain Morrison stood by the large window that looked out into space. His ship, the Horizon's Edge, floated nearby, looking small next to the massive diplomatic vessel. "They've been watching us," he said quietly. "The question is, what have they seen?" The answer came sooner than anyone expected. The ship's sensors detected an approaching vessel before anyone could see it. It was small, much smaller than the Harmony's call, but it moved with a grace that spoke of advanced technology. "Incoming vessel," announced the ship's computer. "Design unknown. Energy signatures do not match any known technology." The alien delegates gathered around the main view screen as the human shuttle came into view. It was sleek and silver, with lines that seemed both simple and complex at the same time. There were no obvious weapons, but something about the way it moved made it clear that this was a ship built by people who understood war. "They're requesting permission to dock," the communications officer reported. "Their message is in perfect galactic standard." Ambassador Kethver straightened his crystal form. "Grant permission and activate all recording devices. This moment will be remembered forever." The docking process was smooth and quiet. The human shuttle attached to the Harmony's call without any of the usual bumps or grinding sounds that happened when different technologies tried to work together. It was as if the humans understood their systems perfectly. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and the first human stepped into the ship. The aliens had spent weeks preparing for this moment. They had studied the old records, looked at ancient pictures, and tried to imagine what the legendary humans would look like. They expected to see warriors from the old stories, tall and mighty, with eyes that blazed with inner fire. Instead, they saw something that shocked them more than any legend could have. The humans looked ordinary. Admiral Jake Collins walked into the room first. He was not particularly tall, not particularly strong-looking. His hair was gray, his face was lined with age, and he wore a simple uniform that could have belonged to any military officer in the galaxy. Behind him came 2 other humans, a woman and a man, both looking just as normal as their leader. "I am Admiral Collins," he said, his voice calm and steady. "I speak for the United Earth Defense Force. We understand you have a problem." The aliens stared at him in surprise. This was not what they had expected. The humans from the legends were supposed to be giants, warriors who could fight impossible battles and win. These people looked like they could be hurt, like they could be killed just as easily as anyone else. Dr. Rachel Chun, the woman who had entered with the Admiral, pulled out a small device and began scanning the room. "Interesting," she said. 12 different species, all oxygen-breathing, all within normal temperature ranges. The old records were accurate. Ambassador Kethver found his voice first. You are the legendary Terrans, the humans from the old stories?" Admiral Collins smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "We are humans, yes. As for being legendary, that depends on who you ask." Captain Morrison, who had been standing quietly in the background, stepped forward. "Admiral, it was my ship that detected your monitoring stations. We've been hoping to make contact." The third human, who had not yet spoken, nodded to Morrison. "Captain Kyle Morrison, commanding the Horizon's Edge. We've been watching your ship for 3 weeks. You're a good captain, but your crew needs better training in stealth operations." Morrison felt his face go red. "You've been watching us?" "We watch everyone," Admiral Collins said simply. "We've been watching the galaxy for 2,000 years. We know about the Void Hunters. We know about the worlds they've consumed. We know about the fear that's spreading through every civilized system." Elder Zarathul stepped forward, her ancient voice filled with hope. "Then you'll help us? The old chronicles say that humans fought the Star Devourers before. The Void Hunters are the same enemy, aren't they?" Dr. Chun consulted her device, checking something on its screen. "The entities you call Void Hunters match our historical records perfectly. Same tactics, same technology, same hunger for biological matter. We fought them once before, and you won? Asked General Thoxahar. Admiral Collins was quiet for a long moment. We convinced them to look for easier prey. They left our system and went hunting in other parts of the galaxy. We've been tracking them ever since. The room went silent. The implications of what the Admiral had said slowly sank in. The humans had not destroyed the Void Hunters. They had just made them go away. How? Ambassador Kethvar asked. How did you make them leave? We made it too expensive for them to stay, Admiral Collins replied. The Void Hunters are not stupid. They're very smart, actually. They calculate the cost of every attack, every battle. If the cost is too high, they move on to easier targets. Captain Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying that you knew they would attack other worlds? We knew it was possible, Dr. Chun said. But we also knew that Earth was not ready to fight a galactic war. We had to buy time to prepare, time to build the tools we would need. And now? Elder Zarathil asked. Are you ready now? Admiral Collins looked around the room at all the alien faces staring at him. That depends. Are you ready to fight? A war the way humans fight wars. What do you mean? Asked General Thoxahar. The Admiral walked to the large window and looked out at the stars. Every species in this galaxy fights with honor. You have rules, codes of conduct, traditions that go back thousands of years. You fight wars like they're games with clear winners and losers. He turned back to face the aliens. Humans don't fight like that. We fight to win, no matter what it costs. We fight dirty, we fight smart, and we fight until the enemy is completely defeated. That sounds like the humans from the legends, whispered Elder Zarathil. The legends got some things right, Admiral Collins admitted. But they got the most important thing wrong. They said we fight without hope. That's not true. We fight because we have hope. Hope that our children will live to see tomorrow. Hope that our worlds will survive. Hope that somewhere in the galaxy there are people worth fighting for. Ambassador Kethvar's crystal form began to glow brighter. Will you help us? Admiral Collins smiled again, and this time it was a real smile. Captain Morrison, show them the fleet. Morrison looked confused. What fleet? Dr. Chung touched her device, and suddenly the view screen came alive with images from outside the ship. The empty space around them was not empty at all. Hundreds of ships hung in the void, their sleek forms barely visible against the stars. The alien delegates gasped in amazement. The ships were like nothing they had ever seen. They were not huge like the warships of most species, but they moved with a deadly grace that spoke of incredible technology. The First Fleet, Admiral Collins said quietly. 200 ships crewed by the best officers Earth has ever produced. We've been preparing for this day for 2,000 years. At the center of the fleet was a ship that dwarfed all the others. It was long and sleek, with lines that seemed to flow like water. Weapons that looked like they could crack planets were mounted along its hull. The used Defiance, Admiral Collins said. My flagship, she's been waiting for this fight for a very long time. General Thoxahar stared at the massive ship. How many? More fleets do you have? Enough, Admiral Collins replied. The question is, are you ready to learn how to fight like humans? Because if you want to beat the Void Hunters, you're going to have to forget everything you think you know about war. The aliens looked at each other, then back at the humans. These ordinary-looking people had built a fleet that could challenge the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. The legends were true, but the reality was even more impressive. Teach us, said Ambassador Kethvar. The War Council met aboard the Defiance, the massive human flagship that now served as headquarters for the combined forces. The aliens had never seen anything like it. The ship's corridors were wide and clean, with soft lighting that made everyone feel comfortable. But underneath the peaceful appearance, they could feel the power of the weapon systems humming through the walls. General Patricia Stone stood at the center of the main briefing room, surrounded by holographic displays that showed the entire galaxy. She was a small woman with short brown hair and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear, but the alien commanders could hear the steel underneath. The Void Hunters are not random destroyers, she sighed, pointing to the display. They follow patterns. They have a plan and they stick to it. This gives us an advantage if we're smart enough to use it. Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian fleet stood up suddenly. His people were known throughout the galaxy as great warriors, and he had won more battles than any other living commander. General Stone, with respect, we know how to fight. We have been fighting the Void Hunters for 2 centuries. And losing, General Stone said quietly. You've been fighting them for 200 years, and they've consumed over 200 worlds. That's not a war, Commander. That's a slow extinction. The room went quiet. The alien commanders looked uncomfortable, but they couldn't argue with the facts. General Stone continued, manipulating the holographic display to show the Void Hunter advance patterns. They don't attack randomly. They start with small colonies, places with few defenses. They consume everything on these worlds, using the biological matter to grow stronger. Then they move to bigger targets. Dr. Martin Wells, the human scientist, who had been studying the Void Hunters, took over the presentation. The Void Hunters are not just machines. They're a combination of technology and biology. They need specific conditions to operate at full strength. Captain Threndel of the Kepler Defense Force looked confused. What kind of conditions? Temperature, atmospheric pressure, radiation levels, Dr. Wells explained. Change those conditions and they become much weaker. Their ships move slower. Their weapons don't work as well, and they can't repair damage as quickly. The alien commanders exchanged glances. This was not the kind of information they were used to hearing in military briefings. You're talking about environmental warfare, said General Foxahar. Such tactics are forbidden under the Galactic War Codes. Not environmental warfare, Dr. Wells corrected. Tactical atmospheric modification. It's completely legal under emergency. Protocols, Admiral Collins stepped forward. The Void Hunters expect you to fight them the way everyone else fights. They expect honor, direct confrontation, and predictable tactics. They've been winning for 2 centuries because they know exactly what you're going to do. And what would you have us do? Commander Veltar asked, his voice showing his frustration. Admiral Collins smiled. We're going to teach you to fight like humans. The plan that emerged over the next several hours was unlike anything the aliens had ever heard. Instead of meeting the Void Hunters in direct battle, they would use a series of tricks and deceptions to draw them into a trap. Captain Lisa Martinez stepped forward to explain her part of the plan. She was the commander of the stealth frigate Shadow's Edge, and her job was to harass the Void Hunter supply lines. My ship can move without being detected, she explained. We'll hit their support vessels, the ones that carry the biological matter they need to repair their ships. Without those supplies, they'll be forced to move faster than they want to. The alien commanders looked skeptical. Captain Mordick spoke up. You want us to run away? To let them think they're winning? Not run away, General Stone corrected. Withdraw strategically. There's a big difference. When you run away, you're scared and disorganized. When you withdraw strategically, you're leading the enemy exactly where you want them to go. She manipulated the holographic display to show a star system near the edge of human space. We'll make our stand here in the Proxima Centauri system. It looks like a perfect target for the Void Hunters, but it's actually a trap. What kind of trap? Asked Elder Zara, single quotes, full. Dr. Wells smiled. We've been modifying the environment of that system for the past 50 years. We've placed atmospheric processors throughout the asteroid belt, disguised as space debris. When the Void Hunters enter the system, we'll activate them, and then, Commander Veltar asked, then they'll find themselves fighting in conditions that make them weak while we fight in conditions that make us strong, Admiral Collins said. But the trap will only work if they believe they're chasing a beaten enemy. The alien commanders were quiet for a long moment. Finally, General Foxahar spoke. This plan requires us to sacrifice entire star systems as bait. Our people will think we're cowards. Your people will be alive, General Stone said firmly. Commander, I've studied your military history. Your people are brave, maybe the bravest in the galaxy. But bravery without strategy is just a fancy way of dying. What about honor? Commander Veltar asked. What about the Warriors Code? General Stone walked over to the view screen and called up images of dead worlds, planets that had been consumed by the Void Hunters. Tell me, Commander, what honor is there in this? What Warriors Code allows for the extinction of entire species? The images were horrible. Worlds that had once been green and alive now looked like burned rocks floating in space. Cities that had housed millions of people were now just empty craters. The Void Hunters don't care about your honor, Admiral Collins said. They don't care about your traditions or your codes. They care about one thing, consuming everything alive in the galaxy. You can have honor or you can have survival. Choose. The silence that followed was heavy. The alien commanders looked at the images of dead worlds, then at each other, then back at the humans. Captain Morrison, who had been quietly listening to the discussion, finally spoke. There's something else we need to consider. The Void Hunters aren't just destroying our worlds. They're learning from each battle. They're getting smarter, more efficient. What do you mean? Asked Dr. Yelenara. Look at the pattern of their attacks, Morrison said, calling up a new set of data. 200 years ago, it took them months to consume a world. Now they can do it in days. They're adapting, improving their tactics. Dr. Wells nodded. That's why we have to hit them hard and fast. If we give them time to adapt to our new tactics, they'll find ways to counter them. How long do we have? Asked Ambassador Kethver. Admiral Collins checked his instruments. Our long-range sensors show the main Void Hunter fleet is 3 weeks away from the Proxima Centauri system. That gives us time to get everyone in position, but not much more. 3 weeks to prepare for the most important battle in galactic history, General Stone said. 3 weeks to teach 12 different species how to fight like humans. Can it be done? Elder Zarathul asked. Admiral Collins looked around the room at all the alien faces. It has to be done because if we fail, there won't be a second chance. The next few hours were spent working out the details of the plan. Each alien fleet would have human advisors, officers who would help them understand the new tactics. The humans would provide technical support, helping to modify alien weapons and shields to work better in the changed environment of the trap. But the hardest part was convincing the alien commanders to abandon the fighting methods they had used for thousands of years. You're asking us to throw away everything we believe in, Commander Veltar said as the meeting was ending. No, General Stone replied. We're asking you to remember what you're fighting for, your people, your worlds, your future. Those beliefs are worth more than any warrior's code. As the alien commanders returned to their ships to prepare for the battle, Admiral Collins stood alone in the briefing room, looking at the holographic display of the galaxy. Captain Martinez joined him. Think it will work? She asked. It has to, Collins replied. Because if the Void Hunters win this battle, they'll have enough resources to consume the core worlds. After that, nothing will stop them. And if we win? Collins smiled. Then we'll have proven that humans aren't just myths. We'll have proven that sometimes the best way to fight monsters is to become something they don't expect. The Defiance and the combined fleet began moving toward the Proxima Centauri system, carrying with them the hopes of every civilized world in the galaxy. The trap was set, but would it be enough to stop an enemy that had been winning for 2 centuries? The answer would come soon enough. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Proxima Centauri, and the galaxy was slowly learning to breathe again. The Galactic Council chamber looked the same as always, with its white walls and comfortable seats for dozens of different species. But the mood was completely different now. Ambassador Kethver stood at the center of the room, his crystal body glowing with steady, peaceful light. For the first time in 2 centuries, there was no fear in his voice when he spoke. The Outer Rim colonies are rebuilding, he announced to the assembled delegates. The mining worlds of Kepler Belt have restarted their operations. The agricultural planets of the Terralix system are growing food again. For the first time in generations, our children can look at the stars without being afraid. The chamber filled with the sounds of approval from a dozen different species. Some clapped their hands, others made musical sounds, and a few glowed brighter with happiness. We owe this piece to our newest members, Kethver continued. Gesturing toward the section where the human delegation sat, Admiral Collins sat uncomfortably in his chair. Even after 6 months, he still felt strange being part of formal ceremonies. Like this, beside him, Dr. Rachel Chun was reading reports on her tablet. And Captain Morrison was trying to stay awake during the long speeches. Elder Zarethel rose from her meditation pod, moving her 6 arms in patterns that showed great respect. The question before us today is what role humanity will play in our future. They have proven that the old legends were true, but now we must decide how to move forward together. The debate that followed showed just how much the galaxy had changed. Some delegates wanted to give humans immediate leadership positions in the Galactic Council. Others worried about what might happen if a species that fought so differently from everyone else had too much power. Commander Veltar, who had fought alongside human ships in the Great Battle, spoke first. These humans think in ways that none of us ever considered. They see weaknesses where we see strengths. They find solutions where we see only problems. They could be our greatest allies, but they could also be our most dangerous enemies if we anger them. Captain Threndel of the rebuilt Kepler Defense Force disagreed. Admiral Collins and his people saved our worlds. They asked for nothing in return except the chance to stand with us as equals. I have seen how they treat their own people, how they care for the weak and protect the innocent. They are not conquerors. The argument continued for hours. Some delegates talked about the human military strength, others about their strange technology. A few worried about human psychology, about a species that could fight without hope and win without mercy. Finally, Admiral Collins stood up to address the assembly. The chamber fell silent as everyone waited to hear what the humans wanted. "We didn't reveal ourselves to rule you," he said, his voice carrying clearly to every corner of the room. "We didn't come out of hiding to build an empire or to make you follow our ways." He paused, looking around at all the different alien faces watching him. "For 2,000 years, we've been alone in the galaxy. We watched from the shadows as civilizations rose and fell. We saw species discover space travel, meet each other, build something beautiful together." Dr. Chun stood beside him. "We also saw what happened when that beauty was threatened. We watched the Void Hunters consume world after world, and we knew that eventually they would come for everyone, including us. We could have stayed hidden," Admiral Collins continued. "We could have built bigger walls, stronger shields, better weapons. We could have protected Earth and let the rest of the galaxy burn." The chamber was completely quiet now. Even the usual background sounds of breathing and movement had stopped. "But we didn't do that," Collins said, "because we learned something important during our long isolation. Being strong enough to survive isn't the same as being strong enough to live." General Patricia Stone joined them, her small frame somehow commanding attention from beings 10 times her size. "The Void Hunters were not the only threat out there. Our long-range sensors have detected energy signatures from the galactic core that suggest something much worse might be coming." This caused a stir of worried conversation among the delegates. They had just finished dealing with one galaxy-threatening enemy, and now they were being told about another one. "What kind of threat?" asked Dr. Yelanara. "We don't know yet, Doctor," Chun admitted. "But whatever it is, it's big, it's old, and it's been sleeping for a very long time. Our victory over the Void Hunters may have woken it up." Admiral Collins raised his hand for silence. "This is why we need to work together. Not because humans want to rule the galaxy, but because the galaxy is a dangerous place. There are threats out there that no single species can handle alone." Ambassador Kethver's crystal form pulsed with thoughtful light. "What do you propose?" "Partnership," Collins said simply. "Not human leadership, not human control. Partnership. We share our knowledge, our technology, our ways of thinking. You share yours. Together, we become stronger than any of us could be alone. What about your military advantages?" asked General Faxahar. "Your weapons, your tactics?" "We'll teach them to anyone who wants to learn," General Stone replied. "But we won't force them on anyone. Some species might prefer to fight in their traditional ways. That's their choice." And if we disagree with human decisions? Commander, Veltar asked. Admiral Collins smiled. Then we argue about it like civilized beings. We vote, we debate, we compromise. That's what the Galactic Council is for, isn't it? The vote was taken that afternoon, and it was unanimous. Humanity was welcomed into the Galactic Council with full membership and all the rights and responsibilities that came with it, but the real changes began in the weeks that followed. Human advisors were sent to dozens of worlds, not to command, but to teach. They showed alien engineers new ways to build ships, alien scientists new ways to understand the universe, and alien soldiers new ways to protect their homes. Captain Morrison found himself commanding a joint task force of human and alien ships patrolling the outer rim and watching for signs of new threats. His crew was a mix of species, all working together using tactics that combined the best of human strategy and alien courage. "Sir," Lieutenant Amy Foster reported from her station, "we're receiving distress calls from the Altair system. Pirates are attacking the shipping lanes." Morrison smiled. "Set course for Altair and send a message to Commander Veltar. Tell him it's time to show these pirates what happens when you threaten Council worlds." On Earth, Admiral Collins stood in his office, looking out at the stars through a large window. Dr. Chun entered with the latest reports from the exploration fleets. "The surveys of the galactic core are complete," she said. "Whatever's out there. It's definitely artificial, and it's huge." "How huge?" Collins asked. "Bigger than anything we've ever seen." The energy readings suggest a structure the size of a solar system. Collins was quiet for a moment. "Then we'd better start preparing. Because if the Void Hunters were just the beginning, we're going to need every ally we can get." Outside his window, he could see ships from a dozen different worlds docked at the new joint space station that orbited Earth, human crews and alien crews working side by side, sharing knowledge and building something that had never existed before, a truly united galaxy. The myths about humans had become reality, but reality had become something even more powerful. It had become hope for a future where no species would have to face the darkness alone. The legends spoke of humans who could fight without hope and win against impossible odds, but the truth was even better. Humans had learned that the greatest strength came not from fighting alone, but from standing together with others who shared the same dream of survival. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but for the first time in its history, it was also united. And that unity would be tested soon enough by whatever ancient evil was stirring in the galactic core, but that, as Admiral Collins knew, was a story for another day. 1 year after the Great Battle, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have imagined. The fear that had gripped every civilized world for 2 centuries was gone, replaced by something that most species had forgotten how to feel, hope for. The future. Admiral Collins stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, the massive new space station that orbited Earth. Through the transparent walls, he could see ships from dozens of different worlds coming and going. Zephyrian crystal vessels sparkled like jewels as they docked next to sleek human cruisers. Kepler Defense Force ships shared loading bays with Meridian exploration vessels. "Hard to believe it's only been a year," said Captain Morrison, joining the Admiral at the viewing window. Morrison now wore the uniform of the new Galactic Defense Force, a combined military that included officers from every member world. "Sometimes I think we're moving too fast," Admiral Collins replied, watching a group of young human and alien officers walking together through the station corridors. "Other times I think we're not moving fast enough." Dr. Rachel Chun appeared beside them, carrying a stack of reports. "The integration is going better than our best projections," she said. 17 worlds have requested human military advisors. 23 want to share our medical technology. And 36 systems want to learn our manufacturing techniques. "Any problems?" Morrison asked. "A few," Chun admitted. "Some of the older species are having trouble adapting to our methods. They've been doing things the same way for thousands of years. Change is hard for them," Collins nodded. "What about the younger species? They're adapting much faster. The Altarians have already modified their entire fleet using human stealth technology." The vegan colonies have started using our agricultural methods and increased their food production by 300%. Through the viewing window, they could see a perfect example of this new cooperation. A mixed crew of humans and aliens was working together to repair a damaged exploration ship. They moved with practiced efficiency, each species contributing their unique skills to solve the problem. Commander Veltar approached the group, his crystal form glowing with satisfaction. Admiral Collins, I wanted to thank you again for the training exercises last month. My pilots have improved remarkably since learning human tactics. How are they adapting to the new fighting styles? Collins asked. Better than I expected, Veltar replied. At first, many of them complained that human tactics were dishonorable. But when they saw how effective these methods were against pirates and raiders, they changed their minds quickly. Morrison smiled. Nothing teaches lessons like success. Indeed, Veltar agreed. We've cleared 3 entire sectors of pirates using human stealth tactics and alien courage. The shipping lanes are safer now than they've been in decades. Dr. Chun checked her reports. Speaking of safety, we've received some interesting data from the deep space monitoring stations. The ones Captain Morrison discovered originally. What kind of data? Collins asked. Energy readings from the galactic core. They're getting stronger. Chun's voice became more serious. Whatever's out there, it's definitely waking up. Our scientists estimate we have maybe 2 years before it becomes active. The group fell silent. They had known this day would come. The victory over the Void Hunters had sent ripples across the galaxy, and something ancient had felt those ripples. Do we know what it is yet? Morrison asked. Not exactly, Chun replied. But the energy patterns are similar to what we saw from the Void Hunters, only much older and much more powerful. We think it might be the source of the Void Hunters themselves. Admiral. Collins was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then we need to be ready. How's the fleet construction coming along? Ahead of schedule, Commander Veltar reported. The joint shipyards are producing vessels faster than we ever thought possible. Human efficiency combined with alien innovation is proving to be a powerful combination. Through the viewing window, they could see one of these new ships being completed. It was unlike anything that had existed before, sleek like a human vessel, but with the flowing lines that alien artists preferred. Its weapons combined the devastating power of human technology with the precision of alien engineering. The new Unity-class ships are impressive, Morrison observed. But will they be enough? They'll have to be, Collins replied. Because running and hiding isn't an option this time. Whatever's coming from the galactic core, it's too big for any one species to handle alone. General Patricia Stone joined their group, carrying her own set of reports. The training programs are exceeding all expectations, she announced. We now have mixed crews on over 200 ships. Human and alien officers working side by side, sharing knowledge and tactics. Any conflicts? Chun asked. Fewer than we expected, Stone replied. There are still some cultural differences to work out, but most species are adapting well to joint operations. The key is respect. When humans respect alien courage and aliens respect human cunning, amazing things happen. As if to prove her point, a group of young officers walked past the observation deck. A human lieutenant was deep in conversation with a Zephyrian ensign, both of them studying star charts and discussing navigation techniques. The next generation won't even think it's strange, Morrison observed. To them, working with other species will be normal. Elder Zarathol appeared in the corridor, moving slowly, but with dignity. Even though she was ancient by any standard, she had insisted on touring the new station to see the changes for herself. Admiral Collins, she said in her soft, musical voice. I wanted to speak with you about the historical archives. What about them? Collins asked. We've been combining human records with our own ancient chronicles. The picture that's emerging is troubling. Zarathol's 6 arms moved in patterns that showed deep concern. The entity in the galactic core is mentioned in the oldest texts from before any of our species achieved spaceflight. What do the texts say? Dr. Chun asked. They call it the First Hunger, Zarathil replied. According to the records, it created the Void Hunters as scouts, sending them out to test the defenses of younger species. When the scouts were destroyed, it would know that the galaxy had grown strong enough to be worth consuming. The group exchanged worried glances. This was worse than they had thought. How long do we have? Stone asked. The texts are unclear, Zarathil admitted. But based on the energy readings Dr. Chun mentioned, I would estimate less than 2 years. Admiral Collins straightened his shoulders. Then we use the time we have. Every day, every week, we get stronger. We build more ships, train more crews, develop better weapons, and if it's not enough? Morrison asked. Collins smiled, the same expression that had made alien diplomats nervous during their first meeting. Then we do what humans have always done. We fight anyway. We fight because giving up isn't an option. We fight because our children deserve a future, and this time we won't be fighting alone. Through the viewing window, they could see the ships of the combined fleet moving in perfect formation. Human vessels flying alongside alien craft, their crews working together with a coordination that would have been impossible just a year ago. Captain Lisa Martinez walked onto the observation deck, her stealth ship having just returned from a scouting mission to the Galactic Rim. Admiral, we've detected something you need to see. She activated a portable holographic display showing the outer edge of the galaxy. We found this at the very edge of known space. The image showed a massive structure, clearly artificial, drifting in the void between galaxies. It was dark and silent, but there was something about its shape that made everyone uncomfortable. What is it? Chun asked. We think it's a Void Hunter construction ship, Martinez replied. But it's much bigger than anything we saw during the war, and it's heading toward the galactic core. Admiral Collins studied the image carefully. It's going home. The defeat of the main fleet was a signal. Now the real enemy knows we're here. Sir, Morrison said quietly, are we ready for this? Collins looked around at the faces of his friends and allies. Humans and aliens who had learned to work together, to trust each other, to fight for something bigger than themselves. We're as ready as we can be, he said. And that will have to be enough. Outside the station, the combined fleet continued its patrols, watching and waiting. The galaxy was no longer divided by fear and mistrust. For the first time in its history, all the civilized species stood together as one people, ready to face whatever darkness might come. The myths about humans had become reality. But the greatest myth of all was the one they had helped create. That together, there was no force in the universe that could not be defeated. Soon that myth would be tested by the oldest and most powerful enemy the galaxy had ever known. But whatever came from the darkness between the stars would find not scattered, frightened species fighting alone, but a united galaxy that had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from being unbeatable, but from refusing to give up. No matter what the odds, the real war was about to begin.